Hey guys, it's Mihai, and today we're painting Bowser. And here I am from the future, just giving you a quick peek of what we're gonna end up with. We've got a model loaded in Bambu Studio, and we'll use it to paint the model so that we can print it in multicolor. You can download this model from Thanks. It's designed by Printed Obsession, it's not my model. I'll be using this space mouse. It helps me navigate the 3D space, but it's definitely not needed and won't make much of a difference for this tutorial. Now, this model is not painted, but I did paint it before, only I lost the file. I did 3D print it before, and here you can get an idea how it will look like in the end. I'm gonna be using these 11 colors on the left side. It's probably a bit much. I like using 8 or less colors usually. This way you can print it with just 2 AMS units and there's less waste. But for this model I wanna go as close to the cartoon colors as possible, so we're gonna use all 11. Now first, to set the colors, you can click on them and you've got this color picker and you can use it to set the color, and if the color is already used then you can see it directly on the model. And when printing on the Bambu Lab 3D printers, you don't have to have the colors in the same order you have them loaded in the AMS units, but it does help. And in fact, what I like to do is go on the Device tab, and here on the right we've got the tabs for all the AMS units that I've got available. And I can edit the colors there directly with this custom color picker. And these colors here get synchronized with the printer, so that the printer knows which colors there are, but also the slicer knows. It is similar doing it from the Bambu app. You can go to the colors, click them and choose which color is closest to what you're using, but there's no color picker, so you're limited to only these options. And that's why I prefer using this color picker on the slicer. Now, when you use Bambu Lab spools, they come with a tag and the printer will know and fill in the color for that filament. You don't have to do it manually. And once you have these colors here, you can synchronize them with your project from this button. It says synchronize filament list from AMS, and you can sync and the colors update here from the AMS unit. And these colors here, they are just approximations. That's not necessarily how the print will look like, but it does help to give you an idea here visually how the model would look, sort of. Right, enough with that, let's do some actual painting. So first of all, I want to assign a base color for the whole model, and the model is mostly this orange yellow, and orange yellow is number 3, so I'll just hit 3 and now it's all yellow. And now I don't need the left side bar anymore on the screen, so I'll hide it with Shift and Tab, and now we've got the whole screen for painting. And now to do the actual painting, we're gonna use this tool called color painting. You can also toggle it with N. And here we enter a different mode. You see there's no more build plate visible. And in fact, let me show you, if you have multiple models, when you enter painting mode, you only see the one that is being painted. Now, color painting has a few tools here. First of all, you've got the colors, and you can access them by pressing the numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 9. 10 and 11, I have to click on them. And now when painting, you paint with one of these tools. So we've got a circle selected right now, so we can paint it like this. Of course, when you look from the side, you see that there's actually a gap here because you're painting on pretty much the screen in this case. So I'm gonna do that. Now I'm gonna start with the eyes. And one thing you notice, if you wanna paint with this circle, it's gonna be tricky to get the colors in the right place. You see that I missed a spot and I'm not following the contour. But there is a better tool, it's called Fill, and this is what we're gonna use most of the time. And now as I hover over the eye, there's this outline of where the paint would go. So if I click it, I'm making all this section white. I could click here as well and make the other one, but you see there's a small triangle here that is left, so I have to click it separately. And now I want the inside to be red, so 5, but I cannot highlight the inside. The way the paint tool works is it looks for sharp edges to determine the area to fill. So whenever you have a model that has clearly defined edges, it's going to be very easy to fill it. Now for this one, I want to follow this round area of the eye, and for that we've got this Smart Fill Angle. So if we lower it, and by lowering it, we make it more sensitive. So now I can select, you see, just this area. We've got some shortcuts here. it says we can paint, we can erase, but you can change the smart fill angle with the control and mouse wheel. So by holding control and rotating the mouse wheel, I can more precisely select the area I want. So this is too much, this is too little, and this is about right. So I click it and get the red section. And now the inside of the eye is more difficult to paint. So I want it black, but I want only the inside, and I could perhaps scroll until we've got about this kind of selection and try to click like this. It's not perfect. I can further adjust with the triangle. So the triangle selects only one triangle on the model, and all models are always just triangles. So I would have to paint red these triangles that got blackened, and then switch to black and fill in these ones maybe. But I'm not very happy about this, so I'm gonna use a different tool. So maybe first paint with the fill tool, paint everything red, and now I'm gonna use the sphere tool to paint the middle black. And the sphere tool basically paints a sphere around the cursor, and there's this pen size that I can adjust to make it bigger. I can also use the control key and mouse scroll, and I want it about this big, click, and now we've got the inside of the eye, just as I wanted it. Now the color combination is a bit weird. I'm trying to follow the cartoon colors, so that's why we've got these ones. And I might actually paint more of it in black, like so. Alright, to the other eye, on the white color, it is a bit tricky to rotate in the right place. Here's the other eye. I want to fill it white. That's one section. Then I want red for the other section. There's here a little bit missing. There we go. And then use the sphere tool for the inside of the eye and place it there. There we go. Alright, now normally when I start painting, I start with the largest part. In this case would be the edge of the shell, and that is color number 2. So I'm just playing with the fill angle until it selects only this part. I could drag from here, but if I drag from here, I have no preview. So it's better to hover where I want to paint and then use control and scroll. Now I'm making it more sensitive. Right now it looks like I'm selecting this part. So if I click, you see I don't want this. So I'm gonna undo. If I make it too sensitive, then we're gonna have these spots and I have to paint those individually. Now I would like to select most of it, and in this case it looks like we're also selecting this part. That's because there's a smooth transition somewhere and the fill tool is not finding a sharp edge to delimit the two. So when I click, looks like we've got this painted, we've got the tail painted, and some of the body here. You see how this is a smooth transition, and so the fill goes from here to here. Now we're gonna leave it like this for now. I'm happy that the shell part is fully painted, and we're gonna get later to the tail and the other parts. Now the shell is dark green, which is number 8, and I could try to paint these parts independently, but there's a risk that there are gaps. So what I like to do is to reduce the sensitivity so that I can select the entire thing. It will still be limited by the edge of the other color. So even if I go with the lowest sensitivity, I'm still only selecting this part. Let me click it to show you. There you go. Now there is a bug here that while adjusting sensitivity, I'm also selecting this area. You can see the whites. So if I click it, you can see that I've selected the wrong thing. And I'm gonna do this. So this is a bug because now if I click it again, it only selects this part as intended. So just something to keep in mind. Now it looks like everything I wanted to be green is green, except for maybe this part. So these white lines come from the paint tool, and if I want to hide them, I just need to select a different tool. And you can see now here we've got this tiny yellow. Now this is not a concern because there's another tool called Gap Fill, which has this gap area, and the more I increase it, the more it's gonna fill in gaps with the color around. So I don't apply this yet, but just so you know, we don't need to worry about these tiny bits of different color. Now moving to the spikes, they are brown, so that's 6 on the fill tool, and it's gonna be hard to only select the base, so I'm just gonna fill in everything. And again, because this is green and this is yellow, no matter how I fill in the yellow, it won't go past the green. So it's very easy to fill in these ones. Now for the ones that are already green, I need to increase sensitivity until we select only that one. So I've got this white here that clearly separates it from the rest of the green. And do the same for all of them. Here I need to increase sensitivity even more. I can see the preview that it will select this part. I don't want that. So now the preview only shows the white here, and that's what I wanted. Fill in all of them. There we go, looking good. Now the tip of the spikes is supposed to be bone, which is number 4 for us. And now I need even more sensitivity to only select the tips. And some of them are easier to select than others. This one, for example, has a smoother transition here, so I need even more sensitivity for it. Now this color looks like this other one, but they are different. I could have probably used the same color for both without anyone noticing. So let's fill in the other ones. Now for this one, I need to reduce sensitivity to the point where the tip is not selected anymore. So I'll just go with this one, and we'll get back to the tip. So I'm looking for the lowest angle that doesn't go past what I want to paint. It doesn't have to be super perfect. So now we've got them kind of painted. For the tips, I can either increase the angle to maximum, and then it's gonna only be bordered by the other color, and click it like that. But here I've got multiple sections, and I could, like even a triangle, I could click them individually, or I could use the sphere. So the sphere fills in the whole tip, and I don't need to worry about small islands of different color. So here we go, adding all the tips. I don't even need to worry about where I'm starting the painting from, because the sphere will wrap around the tip. Well, this one not so much. Now for the base, you see this is kind of ugly, and for this I find that the circle is better because the sphere risks touching the other side. So if I click here, you see I'm going too far out, and so I find that the circle is better because it paints exactly what I see on the screen. It doesn't have to be perfect. These parts are quite small. Okay, I think I found a bug where in this case the circle is much smaller than what I'm painting. Should be only half the size. I can still also use the fill tool and try to select only that small area. Sometimes the fill tool, well, it's kind of hard to go to the right place. Sometimes the fill tool is better, other times the circle is better, other times the triangle is better. Now one thing to note is that when you use the circle, you create new triangles. So if I select triangle, you see these triangles are really big, and I can color them independently. But once I use the circle, it creates many tiny triangles. So now if I want to go back to triangles, you see there's all these super tiny ones. So it would be much harder to find them independently. Just something to keep in mind. This is how we paint actually. Each triangle can have only one color, and so when I want to paint a circle here, it has to convert the surface to many different triangles. And now when I fill it back with brown, the tiny triangles are gone. They are merged back into the large ones. So I'm just inspecting all the sections. Maybe use the circle to, whoops, wrong color. 4. Use the circle to fill the parts that I don't want. Like here I need brown, and here I need number 4, kind of like that. It's not super important to color everything perfectly. Now, when we do the actual slicing, the transition area will be sort of blurred out a bit. And there's sort of a trade-off. Do you go for very tiny details or do you do it more rough but faster? Painting this for me takes probably about an hour. All right, I'm happy with the spikes. Let's go for the tail. This is supposed to be bone as well, but I am happy with this selection. So I'll turn them white, like so. And then the tail needs to be yellow. So this is the part that gets tricky. I don't want to go into the shell. So this is the maximum. It's got these spots that I need to clean up. I'm gonna use the sphere tool. So the circle is very similar, but if there's a face that is not facing me, so I can't see it on the screen, then I can't paint it, while the sphere goes into the crevices, so to speak. So I'm filling this in, the bottom as well. Here I start with the fill tool with low sensitivity and select this one, try to fill in these gaps that are the wrong color without getting into the spikes. Maybe use the sphere tool again to fill in more. So with the control and scroll, I can adjust the size on the fly. More filling. So the spikes need to be color 4, which is this one. Coloring them. Fill in the tips that are a different color. Now here I've got some of the wrong color. This is one color, this is another, and this is another. And I want these to be yellow. Just filling in the triangles one by one. There's a bit of a mess here. I'll just clean most of it. I don't need to worry about the super tiny gaps. Now there's another spike. There's no way to use the fill tool for this one, so we'll just use the sphere, bigger sphere. Maybe if I look from above and paint it like so, I don't really see what I'm doing, but it's kind of working. Switch back to yellow on the sides. Maybe add a bit back here. All right, that should be good enough. Okay, more here. There we go. It might be a good idea to save this, just in case something goes wrong. I don't want to lose the file. And now I think let's do the thing around the neck, however it's called. That one will be black, and I want to paint it because it's covered by other parts, so it will be harder later to paint it. Adjusting the smart fill angle, it looks like I could do this part and then maybe this part, and it kind of breaks into small little parts. Let's look from the other side. Yeah, lots of tiny gaps, and those gaps are not actually tiny because they're very long, so they wouldn't be closed by the gap fill. Let's look at the gap fill now. So if I increase it, you see these ones go away once I increase it, but well, also this one. Well, it looks like it would work for this setting. Now there is a risk with large gap areas for us to cover the wrong colors. Now suppose I wanted this tip to be red only like this. If later I apply gap fill and I increase the gap enough to cover this section, it also covers this section. It thinks it's a gap, right? So I kind of have to be careful with how much gap you close. Now in this case, I know for sure that is not going to be a problem. So I'm going to apply the change. If I don't apply, nothing happens. And now I want to inspect it. but there's still a gap here, so I want to fill this in separately. Now I don't need high sensitivity for this. Oops, I don't want it red, I want it black. Alright, so this kind of works. Now there's more. Now this gap is connected to this spike, so I need less sensitivity, so I only select, well, it doesn't work. Alright, we're gonna paint the whole thing black. There's more tiny gaps. We can get back to the gaps later. Maybe paint this. Again, it's your call how detailed you want to go. Now the spikes are metal, and that's colored number 9. I can color this one. Again, playing with the sensitivity. I'll get as much as possible of the part colored. Now for the tips I don't need high sensitivity. Now I noticed that when you scroll for sensitivity, it selects the whole model. So see, I'm painting this. But if after scrolling you move away and move back, then it selects only the right thing. So it looks like a bug. We're missing some black here. Right, and we've got 4 more sections just like this one. Oops. Maybe less sensitivity or more sensitivity. I'm trying to fill in as much as possible of the thing that is supposed to be black. And we've got a ton of gaps remaining. Let's go to the gap tool again, try to close some of those and see what's left. There are these tiny triangles. All right, looking good. And now the spikes. Use the sphere for the tips of the spikes. Oh, there's another one missing. Tip, tip, tip. There are some problems here. This is supposed to be black. This would be number 9. Just painting everything that I missed, either with the sphere tool or with the paint tool. For these tips, the sphere is best. Oops. Sometimes the tools go crazy. Now this part here is supposed to be yellow. Well, that's not very yellow. I'm thinking maybe I can use the sphere to separate this section and then the fill could work. Not really. Well, it works a little bit. I still need to individually paint parts. Got the same problem here. Might try the sphere tool and then paint what's left. Try the sphere again here behind this leg. More spike tips. Let's apply the gap again. Alright, looking pretty good so far. I'm thinking now to do the mouth because it's again on the inside, and the inside is more difficult to paint later. So actually the whole mouth will be color 11. So maybe start with that directly. So finding the right angle. There we go. Ah, this is quite good. So we are lucky here because the mouth is clearly defined by this edge all over. I just need to paint some of the inside of the mouth, like in between the teeth. Now I want the tongue to be red. That's not red. There we go. There are bits missing. So once you click with the fill, let me show you. If you're using too much sensitivity, that is low angle, and filling like this, then increasing the angle won't work unless you are able to reach all the remaining sections, because if you paint on the red, it's not gonna go past the red color. So adding less sensitivity here won't increase the color range once it's a different color. Anyways, I'm gonna paint it separately. We're gonna use the gap fill for the tiny parts. And now the teeth are supposed to be white. Let's make them white. Oh, these two are connected. So it looks like there's white in between here. I don't want that. I want this to be color 11. There you go. I don't know if you can see it, but this is now a different color. There's still two more teeth. Make sure we don't select the whole mouth. And it looks like I've got some gaps. Now do the gap fill again. Apply. Well, this tooth is kind of weird. It's not really visible, but let's fix it with the sphere tool. There we go. We are getting closer. I'll save again. Say, let's do the hair. The hair is red and we want to fill it. Let's see if we can without filling the whole face. So just selecting parts that can be filled. Alright, it's almost filled. Let's try another gap fill. So you can see all this yellow stuff goes away. I got still some tips here. Some tips here. There's this back of the hair thing. Alright, more gap fill. It doesn't work. Let's use the sphere. There you go. I'm happy with the hair. Now the horns. The base of the horn is brown. Let's try to select it. That's one. I feel like the rotation part of the slicer it's weird. It rotates in a weird way, so I have to keep centering the model. Anyways, tip of the horns is number 4. Increase sensitivity. There's one, and there's the other one. Sphere for the tips. And we've got the nails, which are white. Let's try filling them in. Now again, I can't select them perfectly because the surface is too rounded, but I'll select what I can. Oops. This one is very tricky. Maybe use the sphere here instead. Alright, one hand done. This one needs more sphere. Hands done, and now for the toes. Again, tricky. For the underneath, because this is all flat, the only way to paint it is like this with a sphere. Wrong color here. Oh, these are really tricky. I think it's better to just go with a sphere directly. And we might have to adjust it later. And now remove the excess. It looks acceptable. And now the belly, well, we want the belly to be the same color as the face. Let's try fill it. I'm filling the tail as well. That's not what I want. So I can't select this part. This part is too smooth. Let's go in with a sphere. And now I can select the rest. And these parts. There are a lot of tiny bits. Kind of the belly. I don't like this part. This should be yellow. Add more gap fill, because there are some problematic areas here. Apply, and now they're fixed. There are still some parts. Oops. I'm gonna manually fill in with color 11. Alright, it looks finished. Let me save again. And for a model this complex is very important, I find, to double check all the little bits. It did happen, for example, for this printed one, I missed some of the colors. There's gray here instead of black because I missed the error. So I'm basically rotating. Oh, there you go. Here's some yellow that shouldn't be there. And I need to check the rest of it, see if there's any missing color or wrong color. This looks a bit weird. Should be yellow, I think, for this part. Maybe use the sphere. There we go. It's looking like what I want. I don't see any more errors. Here we go. There's another here. I could adjust this as well. I mean, these are very small details. I don't know if that would be visible. I'm mainly checking the larger parts, because if there's a wrong color on a large part, it's going to be more visible. Whereas if just some detail is the wrong color, then it's not such a big problem. Oh, almost forgot. This area is not supposed to be yellow, it's supposed to be this bright green, and this will be very easy to fill. Just increase angle to the maximum, because it only selects the area that is yellow, and like that. That was easy. It looks much more Bowser now. And of course, don't forget to save the file. If you have an original file, save it as a different name. And now we're ready for slicing. Now, I know this model is really big. Let me toggle Shift Tab, left hand side. This model is really big, is 183 millimeters tall. That's about this much, and it's gonna take a while to print. So if I slice it, it's taking a while, and it finally finished. One note is this value here is completely wrong. I'm using a custom profile, and for some reason it messes these values. This should be probably 3 times more. And I am experimenting with lightning infill. It's supposed to take way less material, but on the other side the part is more brittle, so we'll see how that goes. Now let me show you about the weights. If I switch to the default profile, alright, here we go with the default profile, we get much more realistic values. So this is 1.8 kilograms of material, and it takes 6 days and 8 hours roughly. And we've got 4600 color changes. And so I can check, for example, I know that I'm low on yellow, but I probably still have about 300 grams left. And we are now finished with the colors technically, but since we're here, I want to mention we've got 574 grams for the print and 1200 grams for the flashed material. Now the print does include the prime tower and it does include all the supports. So the printed part is not 574, and I can quickly show you. Let's remove all the colors but white, no prime tower and no support. Here we are, and I just realized that my camera froze a while back. So the whole model 3D printed without supports and without any color changing, it's only 217 grams and takes 10 hours. So back to the color model, why the difference here from 200 to 567? Well, a lot of it is caused by the inside of the print. When we color the model, and you can see here the lightning infill, so the model is mostly empty, but it still has to go inside with all the colors. Let me select just one layer. Here's just one layer, and we only get to see the outside of it, the outer perimeter, so to speak, and a little bit here. But when it prints, it has to go and print all these invisible perimeters on the inside of the model. And this is a significant amount of material that is needed. You can see here the lightning infill is very little material, but all this part going on the inside is a limitation of how slicing works at the moment, where all the perimeters have to close like a loop. It can't print only some of the perimeter, it has to close them. And the algorithm is not so great, and you can see here how it reaches towards the center of the green section with this brown. And this will happen the more colors you use, pretty much. And this is one other reason why using fewer colors is less material consuming. So even though this model would take a little over 200 grams to print alone, because it's colored, it takes about 500 grams, I would say, maybe even more, of material to be printed. And on top of that, we add 1200 grams of material that is wasted, and we end up with a part that costs 1.8 kilograms of material. And this flashed material comes from the color changes, and the fewer colors you have, usually the fewer color changes you have, but this depends mainly on the number of layers. So if I were to print with thicker layers, then I would significantly reduce this number, but it would also look uglier. Another thing I can do is to make the model smaller, and because it's smaller, it's going to be much shorter. So say I can do it 70% size, and now it's going to have much fewer layers. But another thing I can do, now that it's smaller, I can fit two of them on the print bed. So I could take this here and make another one and perhaps rotate it like so. So now I can fit two of them. Let me, which one's the front? There we go. And of course, printing two of them doesn't use less material, it uses more. But the amount of wasted material stays the same, while instead of one print, we get two prints for just the cost of the additional print. So it's more efficient to print more if you need more. And there's also the risk that one of them could fail, and I might still be able to save the other one. And now slicing takes forever. It's been at least several minutes. So here's the sliced model for the two prints. Let me move my head. Even though we're printing two of them, because they're only 70% tall, overall we're using much less material, 1.4 kilograms. And the models themselves now use as much as just one large one used before. So we've got way less waste and be able to print two of the prints. And it takes almost 5 days, which is still a lot. And sometimes the printer stops because there's an error, so it's going to be even longer probably. Alright, this is what I have for now. Do bop the like button if this was useful, and leave some comments if you have further questions. And until next time, stay awesome!